Hi. Well, we finished announcements, so on with the safety meeting. This is Dennis Dalton, safety officer, and this is the safety meeting briefing for Thursday, November 29th. Say it right, mastering radio communications. I pulled this from the AOPA website, and this particular course had three parts and was quite lengthy, and I just wanted to focus on the part to do with the radio communications. You can get Wings credit for this, although we can't do it here, and although I'm not doing the whole thing anyway. So if you want to go on to the website to do this, to finish the course and get a certificate for it, you can. Since we're only doing part of it, we're going to cover best practices. I know a lot of this is review. I do have some, obviously, comments and some personal experience in quite a few of these from over the years that I'll add to it. But I'm basically will be just reviewing through it. Best practices for pressing push to talk, avoiding pitfalls of ineffective communication, radio operation techniques and tips, the essence of the 4 W's, how to communicate at towered and non-towered airports, airspace communication requirements. These other two here, let me, what I want to do here is see if I can activate my stylus. Because I'm not getting any, there it is. I don't know why well, it's not very big, but there it is. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't think, I'm using an arrow and I don't think you can see it. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so these two aren't going to be included. Radio communication is one of the pilot's core skills. Done right, it reduces workload, decreases stress, and improves safety. This course will help you to communicate properly, efficiently, and effectively from the cockpit. I would say in all the years I've been flying, and a lot of you people out there also, that I made it right through 2 generations. The generation that had almost all of their flight training done without headsets ended up having to have hearing aids. I hopefully so far have skirted that one. But boy, when I was training, I know for my private commercial and instrument, it was one noisy place. And I think that a lot of communication's really been improved because of headsets. I will have a couple comments about headsets later because some of them are just too quiet. Okay, introduction. What is effective communication? In short, it's a message that's successfully received and understood. For pilots, effective radio communication reduces workload and stress and increases confidence and, I would say, safety. Okay, there's 3 scenarios here. I'll go through 3 of these really quick. The first one, this accident, which is a Yak 3 LTA. This Yak 3 approached destination critically low on fuel. 11 miles from the airport, he advised Tower, which was handling 20 other aircraft at the time, he had minimum fuel. Controller told the pilot to follow another aircraft on a straight-in approach, but in order to maintain separation, the Yak had to slow considerably. It ran out of fuel and ended up landing 3/4 of a mile from the runway. Minimum fuel is a hopeful wish that you will be expedited without declaring an emergency. That's my personal feeling on that, which doesn't solve anything, except maybe your own feelings about having enough fuel. Declaring an emergency would have probably been better. Piper Seminole departed Livermore on an IFR flight plan with initial altitude clearance of 4,000 feet. After being handed off to departure, the pilot checked in but received no response. He did, however, hear the controller issue a clearance to maintain 2,000 feet. Due to the controller's rapid speech and use of abbreviated call signs, the pilot mistakenly believed the clearance was meant for him and read it back, compounding the error. The controller failed to recognize that the readback had come from the wrong aircraft. Only a momentary glimpse of terrain and desperate last chance maneuver saved the aircraft from disaster. In our situation, of course, our call signs are all well known by the controllers, and I would say that the confusion there is minimal at Colorado Springs. Although I have certainly run into it at other airports, it's rare. But when they don't know yours, and there are some that are similar. Now, certain airplanes, older airplanes, and I will reference mine, which is my main point of reference, which is a Comanche, and it's a 60s era Comanche, which has a lot of similar call signs ending in Papa, unless you have a custom one. And they can get confusing quickly. I keep wanting to touch the screen when I can't do that, because this isn't an active screen, which is unfortunately, being here at the Aero Club, we can't run anything on the internet. So everything I had to shoot all these screens. So they're dead screens. 2, beach. Single engine aircraft approached Los Alamos County Airport from the north with intention of landing. The P-35 announced a position and intentions on the common CTAF 1230. Unfamiliar with the airport, the K-35 made similar announcements on 1228. Neither was aware of the other's presence. During landing, the P-35 pilot heard a clunk and felt the airplane drift to the right. He had just touched down piggyback atop the K-35, which had landed on the runway seconds before. I guess there's 2 ways to look at this. Small airports, it is somewhat dangerous, I think. A lot of people at small airports just go up for a quick 3 takeoff and landings. It's a nice morning, and they go out and do that. And the radio may be turned down, it may be off. I've had that happen at Fort Victor 1, where I keep my aircraft. And there are certain individuals who just don't bother to turn the radio on. And I did have one instance where I was on final and he came underneath me. And I did have, of course, on the other hand, I had one here at Colorado Springs. I can't remember, it was the military runway. I can't remember which end I was taken off on, but they cleared me out. And for departure, and I was with a student, and we got into the middle of the runway, and a C-130 came over the top of me. Now it wasn't that frightening, but if I had another 5 seconds and I was, rolling and lifting off, that would have been, I probably would have hit him. That was, they had called me, and there was a big to-do about that, but it wasn't me, fortunately, that time. But that was a close one. Frequencies sometimes change, so make sure your charts are up to date. More importantly, always assume there are other aircraft out there. Don't get lazy with your visual scanning just because the radio is quiet. That's really true. Lamar and La Junta, they're pretty good about it out there. Trinidad, yeah, they're pretty good about it there too. So, but still, and I would say Walsenburg, sort of, but not so much. And there are the DOS people are down there almost every day. 3 of them late morning, just for your FYI on that one. Keeping us apart. At its core, the purpose of radio communication is to keep us from colliding with each other. Think of the radio as an essential piece of safety equipment, one that needs to be kept in good working order, but you do have to turn it up. It's not uncommon for older aircraft to operate without radios. While that's certainly legal and can be done safely. These days, it's probably not the best idea. If you're operating without a radio, consider having one installed. We do have someone on the field in Walsenburg who does have an older, really old, I think the 1948 Piper, but he's really good at it. He has radios in his, and I don't think that came with him. Listen first. This is usually something that always comes up for people in training, depending on their personality. You know, good radio communication has much to do with listening as talking. They're paraphrasing Ben Franklin here. We have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. Taking time to get the big picture before hitting transmit means less frequency congestion. I mean, that's quite a big mouthful there, but really, really a good idea. Listening way ahead of time, not listening to music, not talking, sterile cockpit, getting the flow, what's going on, and then you can fit right in and get a mental picture of what's going on. The play on this one was pretty obvious and a little, I would call it a little obvious and silly. I mean, there's like 5 people in the pattern. One of them's a rotary wing. It's hot and heavy in there. Sounds like Meadow Lake on a Saturday morning. And then he calls up and says, is there anybody in the pattern? So that's, 4 W's. Radio calls might seem complicated, especially to new pilots, but every radio transmission can be boiled down to 4 basic elements. Who are you calling? Who you are, where you are, what you want. This, of course, is a non-controlled field. Marshall traffic, Cherokee, 95 Alpha X-ray, where are you? 10 north, 3,000 feet. What do you want? Inbound to land, runway 9. Usually in here, someone will say where they are, but they'll just, a lot of times they won't say this. They'll just say, is there any traffic? And they say, well, why? Okay, letters and numbers. It's important to know the proper way to speak letters and numbers over the radio. We've heard about the phonetic 5 for Fife and things of that nature. Use the phonetic alphabet to help to avoid confusion and ambiguity, especially when transmissions are broken or difficult to hear. Different parts of the country, you need to be a little clear. The Midwest is really good, easy going. You get to either coast and other things are happening. Obviously, it's interesting here. You count the words. Here's 3, here's 4, here's 5 words, here's 3. In the heat of the moment, of course, the correct one here is 8,500 for 8,500. I've heard 8.5 a lot. I don't hear this as much. 8,500. I could have been guilty of doing that if things were really hot and heavy. That's 3 words, not 4. And I'll have something to say about that a little later with the pilot controller glossary changes. In your initial call, include the model of your aircraft in your call sign. I'm pretty guilty of not doing that. I'll say Cessna when I'm flying these things, but around here, they know the call signs. But a Cessna as well as my Comanche, you can have things that are 40, 50 knots slower and 40 to 50 knots faster if it's a Cessna or it's a Piper. So it does behoove to say, Skyhawk. Sometimes the controllers here will actually say that back to you when you say Cessna. I mean, I've had them do that to me. I make mistakes all the time, Call signs. Always give your aircraft full N number. You don't have to use N. And you'll notice down here in their example, Washington Center Skyhawk 5258 Yankee. You don't have to use November. Only abbreviate after they use the shortened 3-character version. And I never hardly ever run into that with students or myself because the controllers will always prompt you. And it certainly would be nuts to not give your full sign when you first call them up anyway, because then they're just going to ask you for it. In your initial call, use the aircraft model rather than make, as I just said. It helps them to anticipate your aircraft's size, shape, and performance. Preparation and practice. Mic fright, common problem. I don't run into that too much, but of course here at the club, it's a lot of military people that are already very used to that. Sometimes I've had students when I've worked at other places that never were in an airplane before, they aren't sure what to do and they'd rather not talk for a while. Practicing on the ground first, of course, you know now, I mean, this is a little quaint, but everybody can get online and interact and learn how to do that if you're real serious about it, rather than waiting to be in the plane and get confused. In the air, it takes time to prepare what you're going to say. Sometimes it helps to rehearse once or twice before you key the mic. This guy, you know, this sample here is merely, he's fumbling around, isn't sure what he's saying, and so on. But I have a little story here. First of all, it says prepare your radio talk. Think about what ATC's response could be. This will help you stay at least one step ahead. And if you forget what you're saying, what you're going to say, keep the mic, don't keep it keyed while you think. And that's pretty good advice. Release the button rather, gather your thoughts and try again. I was on right downwind, 17 right. He's going to call my base. I'm sure you've had that happen, I don't know how many times. Obviously, I'm following somebody. Then he says, okay, turn left now. I can't really, the inflections weren't like that, but he said, turn left now. And I just said to him, well, I was anticipating, I said, you mean turn right? And he goes, no, turn left now for traffic. You know, so that was, you know, so all I can say is that. I mean, I guess I was wrong or I guess I was right. I don't know. I wasn't sure, but obviously traffic in front of me that I saw that he thought was I was too close and I couldn't turn right because that would have been a confusing, probably direction, thinking I could land. Plus, turning over the runway wasn't a good idea if somebody's landing, because you can't have me over the runway. So there was a couple things there, but I remember that one. He was a little piqued about that one. And so there. Speed talking. It's important to be concise on the radio. Remember that concision, or concise, that's a word I'm not too sure about. I guess it's a word. And speed up and speed are two different things. The goal is to trim unnecessary words, not to rattle off calls at lightning speed. I remember it's faster to take your time to be understood than it is to speed talk and then have to be asked to repeat yourself. Yeah. Again, on the coasts, it's I think concise, being concise and trimming words down and staying within the script is better than talking fast. This one actually is a little tricky, I thought, but maybe not for you. But can you talk the talk? Okay, it says some pilots may not think it's important to use standard radio phraseology, but sounding like a professional is one of the keys to being treated like one. And using standard terminology helps to prevent confusion. I had one guy, I don't know what I was doing. I was IFR or something, or I was flight following, and I don't think he wanted to test me. And he asked me to repeat back in phonetic alphabet, I don't know what word it was. And I rattled it off to him because I don't know if he was just giving me a test or what. But anyway. Can you talk? Okay, now if you're advised to go ahead, what's the answer here? Request has been approved. Let's see. I think I already got this one on here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead means proceed with your message. The pilot controller glossary specifically states that this phrase should not be used for any other purpose. Your request has been approved. It's like approved as requested is what I'd expect to hear. Aircraft has been cleared for takeoff. You're cleared for departure, runway such and such, and then give your number. Okay. Oh boy, used and abused. Certain words and phrases are inappropriate and routinely abused by pilots. When it comes to phraseology, the pilot controller glossary and the AIM is your friend. Okay, with you at check-in. I've heard, okay, I can't do that. There. Pilots sometimes use with you or checking in when contacting a new controller following a handoff between AT sectors or facilities, e.g. Skyhawk 1323K is with you at 6,000. Proper phraseology if the aircraft is neither climbing nor descending at the time of the call-up is level, e.g. Skyhawk 1323 kilo level at 6,000 feet. If you're climbing or descending, state your current and assigned altitude, e.g. Skyhawk 1323 kilo climbing through 4,600 for 6,000. Sometimes in the heat of IFR, yes. Have I not done that? Yeah. I wouldn't say with you or checking in. I hear that a lot. That's not good from my point of view. But I might just say climbing to 6, if I can't even think straight, and I shouldn't do that. Taking the active here. When departing non-towered airports, pilots sometimes self-announce they are taking the active runway. To avoid confusion, it's better to be specific. A 5292 Romeo departing runway 23 Frederick. The reason for that, I would say, is in Walsenburg we do not have a taxi back. You do have one in Lyman. You have them in La Junta and Lamar. I can't even think. Yeah, you do have one in Trinidad, but you don't in Walsenburg. So if you say taking the runway, what are you doing? Well, I'm back taxiing. This is a whole nother lecture on this junk. I wouldn't say the safety meeting. Roger. Pilots often use Roger as a catch-all response, yet it actually means nothing more than transmission received. Roger should not be used to answer yes or no questions when the proper response is affirmative or negative to indicate that you will comply with the request, such as reporting a 5-mile final, use Wilco. I got 2 things to say about this quickly. Wilco will comply. It's being used more and more these days, I would say in the last few years, than it had been 10, 20 years ago. That was a real World War II thing. Some of you guys probably know that for a different reason, from different experiences, but they'd use that in those old movies, and they'd use it here and there. And in the 70s, that was like, what? Don't say that. But anyway, it's come back into, I guess, favor mostly, I think, because it's concise. And on that same note, you have Roger here. It used to be Roger Wilco, over and out. That one? Okay. So, but if you're sitting on here's my, I'm sitting on the, it's like tower, Springs Tower. This is Skyhawk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Holding short, Bravo 5, ready for departure. And they'll say, Skyhawk 345, hold short landing traffic. Well, let's see. Skyhawk 345, hold short landing traffic. That's 6 words. So what do they do now? I'm sitting there on Bravo 5, and I'll say, Skyhawk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, holding short, Bravo 5, ready for departure. And they'll say, Roger. First time he did that, I was going, oh, I read they were going to do that, but whoa, it was like, to me, that was like, I don't know, this has been going on right when they start this, 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I think mostly to get rid of all those words, just get rid of all the words, and they'll say, yeah, we heard you, just sit there, Anyway, that a couple times I'd look at the student and I'd say, what do you think we're supposed to do there? Anyway, so. Pilots sometimes acknowledge assigned altitudes with up to or down to. IG down to 5,000 for 2-3 kilo. The proper phraseology is climb, maintain, or descend and maintain. 5,000 2-3 kilo. Yes, so I do that as much as I can. Sometimes I say, you know, I shouldn't say this, but sometimes I will. Understand, you know, 3-5 Cessna 1 2 3 4 5 down to 5. You know, yeesh. You know, I shouldn't do. You know, if things are fast, yes, sometimes I do that. I just admit that I make mistakes. Is what I'm doing here. I don't do that much anymore. I have done that in the past. I'm always trying to do something better each time I go up. Okay, we're rolling, sometimes used by pilots after being cleared for takeoff. By the tower controller, the proper response is simple. Call the readback of your clearance. Skyhawk 5292 Romeo is cleared for takeoff, runway 23. Well, that's pretty obvious. Should be. Rolling's not good. Okay, a little bit about the radios here. We're almost done. We're 3/4 through this. I know we're on 26 minutes, according to my old clock here. Radio operation. Mastering the phraseology is half the battle. Grasping the technology is another. Although radios installed in GA aircraft vary widely, certain functions are universal. I clicked on these 4 tabs. This is the conventional liquid crystal, not the contemporary tab, which has got the G5 or something in there. Simply because that's mostly, you know, kind of hybrid of what we're doing here. So I just stuck with this one. The volume squelch is probably the least understood of the bunch. Push the knob in. You adjust the volume and automatic squelch. Pull it out for manual squelch is what that means. Pulling it out temporarily disables the squelch and will allow you to, you know, put it totally on off, you know, so that when you have automated ATIS or AWAS, you can pick it up farther from the airport, whether you knew that or not, which is helpful because otherwise the automatic squelch from the knob being in will automatically cut that out until you get closer. Sometimes that's helpful. Of course, if you got an iPad, you know, you don't even need the, you know, AWAS anymore. You just get it on your iPad and all that. Or I do. But anyway, that was that one. Transmit receive, I think, the next slide after this one, which talks about, you know, you aren't sure if your radio's working, that's more of an obvious one. This annunciator panel, obviously, if it's on auto, you can transmit and receive on 1 or transmit and receive on 2. If you want to listen to both, which is called duplexing, you can receive on both if you go up here in your little buttons and look for, you're on COM 1, but you want to listen to COM 2, and you find it, and you push the button here, back here, wherever it is. And then you will be listen, transmit on 1, and you can listen on 2. That is helpful a lot of times. If you may have forgotten, I don't know. Some of you that just started flying because you need to listen to ATIS, but you need to listen for the controller. That's sometimes true if you're approaching Pueblo from the Springs and you get with and you want Denver Center or Pueblo approach or Denver approach, they call it. And then you got these guys going because you got that frequency in for the Pueblo also. So you got 2 frequencies that you're trying to use at the same time. Anyway, standby is pretty obvious. Everybody knows that by now. You push this button, and that's kind of true on the 450. This, you know, on the 650, you just, you know, well, the 650 is not the same as the 450 as far as the button goes. But, or I mean 430, sorry, 430 and the 650. But Garmin, GNX, okay. But anyway, standby and active. What I would say about this is in IFR, you know, I always write them down, but flipping these 2 back the handy thing is until I get my a response from these guys, I will not get rid of this one, because if you don't write it down and you're going across country, you've got a lot of unfamiliar frequencies. And if you lose one and this guy doesn't pick up, or you wrote it, or you didn't write it down and you thought you heard it and you heard it wrong, or you put it in wrong, then you got a problem. So this is better to leave it in for a little bit. Well, speakers aren't used too much, although they all work. And again, I said that in the beginning of this talk. Back in the day, that's all we had. And boy, the static and the wind noise and everything, you couldn't tell, boy, you had to almost, go like this, stick your ear up there, what's going on? And gee whiz, headsets are so much better. But I will say, if you have a noise canceling headset, I don't like those for students. I don't even like using them. Mine, Bose, was too particular. And I was switching planes all the time, and the thing just got weird and wouldn't work because it was so sensitive. I had to keep readjusting it all the time, a lot. And then it starts squealing. So I just went back to my old, what is it, the Clark 30.1 or whatever. But if students have one that's too quiet, you can't hear wind noise. You can't tell if maybe when you weren't paying attention, wind noise means, oh, you're going faster. What's going on? Things like that. I find that to be valuable. Squelch adjusts the sensitivity of the radio. Set it too high, it squelches everything, including voice transmissions, like I just said earlier. Set it too low, and you'll hear constant, static. And if you hear static when you turn on your radio, somebody bumped it or turned it, or that's what it's doing. The trick is to increase it till the noise just goes away. Okay, here's the one about and we're almost done here. Okay. In fact, all of them are on here. Once we're done with this, it's about done. This is one where your radios don't work, or you think they don't work, or you haven't heard anyone in a while. And so what's going on is, these are the things you would check. So this is almost a quick review of radio problems in a way. Many perceived radio problems have simple solutions, which they do. I've had 2 times when it wasn't, but you got 2 radios. Well, if neither one's working, it's something else. Yeah, right. A lot of times one radio might wig out or it's not working right, but yeah. Sometimes just resetting a knob or button, or recycling the system can revive an otherwise dead radio. I haven't had that happen. It sounds like a computer. They always tell you that first. Turn it off and turn it back on. We will discuss actual radio failure in more in depth in this course. Well, not today. Okay. Well, of course, this is like any other mic. It's a pressure sensitive mic, so you got to hold it close to your mouth. Also, ambient noise affects it. So this is not a 1980s airplane movie where they got the mic 3 inches from their face so they can get a good photograph of their face, because you wouldn't hear anything. I keep clicking those. I can't do that. Okay. Tune the correct frequency. Many perceived radio problems have simple solutions, sometimes just resetting the knob. And again, and a lot of times I've had that happen to me too. These liquid crystals too. And then, I don't know, sometimes they might get dim or drop off part of the 7 and looks like a 2, might look like a 7. It's like, yeah, you really got to watch that. And here's that little, I think that's a T there, which we'll talk about in a minute. So you see, we're just going down the line here. I have 4 more of these little squares. Radio problems. So this is the same verbiage. Is the volume setting correct on your radio or headset? Give the knob a twist to be sure. Yeah, sometimes I've found that either I've taken the knob and I had to say something to a student and I'd turn that thing down to say something and then I wouldn't turn it back up. That's my fault. Okay. But I don't do that very often, but I'm saying anything can happen there. And so. This is a real common one, and on these planes that we have, sometimes that's a good place to put it. Some of them you gotta put them in, pull them out, put them in, pull them out, and then put them almost all the way in and wiggle them around and spin them around, and to get them to work. So, and I always do that almost as a matter of fact anyway, just to make sure that the ground is good. It's got a ground on there, I mean, they get pushed in and out all the time. They can get a little dirt on them, and you don't know, and then they won't work. Electricity is a funny thing. It's got to make a contact with zero resistance. Okay. Push to talk buttons get used a lot. Eventually, they get stuck. They get stuck or they don't work. Yeah, I have a pet peeve with those too. And check to see if the transmit indicator's on. Well, it might be this or it might be this one. But in those, it's that little T, and I can't remember where it shows. It either shows up right here or on the back side of the numbers. And if it's still on all the time, don't say anything bad because you're transmitting to somebody and it's stuck. And if that's the case, shut the darn thing off and try the other radio because you're jamming up that frequency. And I've done that a couple times when I was younger. One time in Detroit, I remember at night, we jammed up their whole departure frequency for, I was probably a 60-hour private at night. And yeah, we jammed that thing up for probably, 2 or 3 minutes. They were not happy when we finally figured out what we did. Anyway. Okay, so that completes this first section and completes our safety presentation for tonight on some of the little pitfalls and some little things about using the mic. If you want to go on the AOPA and get a wings credit and go through this second section here, which you can see is just as long as the one I just did. They said it was 40 minutes for the total thing, plus a quiz, which I guess it would be, because you wouldn't be having all these anecdotes from a narrator. So anyway, that's the end of the safety presentation. Say it right, mastering radio communications. And now for the airplane drawing, and again, have a nice holiday. And as you know, there's not one next month for Christmas, but we'll have the summary one in January on everything's been done for the year 2022. So hope we have a great 2023. Thanks. This is Dennis Dalton.